So recent conversations I've had with young people, a few that I've had personally, but really more conversations that I've seen happening over social media and uh, other contexts, is about the idea of deconstruction, especially in the context of faith. And so, anyway, I've been thinking pretty heavily about that really over the last few months. But the idea of deconstruction, I think it's actually a pretty critical one. I know, maybe you're against the whole idea that young people should be deconstructing their faith, but I think it's really necessary to a point. The analogy that came to my mind was when I was young. I think this was when we lived in Dallas back in the mid 80s. I remember my dad pulling me into the garage so that we could take apart a carburetor. I don't think I've taken apart a carburetor since then, but the point is, he was showing me how to take apart a carburetor, clean it up, and then reassemble it and put it back in the vehicle. And there's value to that, right? I mean, obviously, while you're deconstructing, the carburetor is not functioning. But what is happening is you are learning. Here are there's components, right? There's pieces of this that all work together to do whatever it is a carburetor does. And you have little springs, and you have pins, and you have parts and screws and gaskets and all these things. Um, some of those things have to be replaced. Some of them, you may have a spring that's too loose or too tight, may have to be replaced. You may have a pin that's bent, so things are not opening or closing as they should, whatever the case might be. But when you deconstruct something to clean it up, you can also repair it. You can put it back together in a way that's more meaningful, more helpful, more functional. And so I will say I did that with my parents' faith. My parents handed me their beliefs. Everybody hands their kids their beliefs, right? You can't not hand your children what you believe. And I think the expectation, really the value, is in your children learning to think for themselves, take those things apart, and keep what is valuable and not keep what isn't of value. But as I say all of that, and I say deconstruction of faith has value, I want to differentiate, because what I also see is people deconstructing faith and then casting it aside, deciding that it's not useful at all. And that's not really deconstruction, that is just destruction. In other words, what I see are people who have been influenced by society to think that because of their human woundedness, what they should do is blame the system, right? Blame their faith, blame their parents, blame whatever. And because of that, people are casting aside the whole system, throwing the whole carburetor out, thinking you're still going to get somewhere with a car that has no carburetor. You're not. I'm not sure exactly what value this conversation may have for you, but if you're a young person who is deconstructing your faith, let me just encourage you to, I guess I have to say this in a Christian context. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? Your parents got some things wrong. Everybody gets some things wrong. There's things missing that should be in there, or there are parts in there that shouldn't be. So deconstruct, investigate, explore the elements of faith for yourself, and make an educated decision. And then begin to reassemble it. This is a part of the process that every generation goes through and has to go through. You have to be able to reassemble the truth as you investigate it. You have to be able to reassemble it in a way that you can hand your children something that is meaningful and is going to help them get through life, and not just this life, but into the next one, I believe, right? So anyway, if I was going to title this video anything, I would call it deconstruction versus destruction, because deconstruction has some value. Destruction, maybe, at least in the context of today, not so much. Anyway, that's it. Thanks.